Peggy 12.
Hey, I'm Matt, producer on The Cave. We just finished the game up recently. Hopefully you've had a chance to play. I decided to head on over to Double Fine and have a talk with the guys that worked on the game. I had a chance to sit down with JP, lead designer. We talked puzzles, design, and sandwiches.
Hey JP, how's it going?
Good.
Can you tell our fans at home what you do here at Double Fine, what your title is, and what specifically you've done for The Cave?
Yeah, I'm a designer, and on The Cave, I helped Ron and Dave G design all the puzzle areas in the game, the way that the puzzles work and what the player has to do, and what happens along the way. And I helped build out the initial spaces for the game and knit it together into a big world that you could go all the way through. And I also did some of the gameplay programming, or what we call scripting, on the thing to make the stuff go later in development. So it kind of changed over the different periods of development. So it was really fun. I got to do a lot of different things.
Cool. So is this your first adventure game working on, or have you not your first rodeo?
I think it is. Yeah. No. It's definitely the first kind of game like this that I've made. I come from I worked on the BioShock games previously before I came to Double Fine, and so yeah, it was really different. But I grew up with the old adventure games, all the way back to Maniac Mansion, and so I've always loved them, and held them close to my heart. So this was an awesome opportunity.
So it's obviously a very different kind of game, but as a designer, is it kind of the same working process, or did you have to completely rework, how you approach designing a game like this?
The level development process was sort of the same because when you have a game that has areas like spaces that you traverse and do stuff in, you tend to start with like a rough plan. You do stuff on the whiteboard and you talk about where the player can go and what needs to happen and stuff. And then the actual design process for adventure game puzzles was really different though, and that was really cool because I was kind of synthesizing the stuff that I had played as a kid, and and just thinking about that, as a game designer, and thinking about what's the player thinking at a given moment, and what do they have to know, and what are they trying to do, and how can we make that, challenging and interesting to do, but not too difficult or obscure. So yeah, that was really exciting, neat.
Was it, how was approaching difficulty? Because you say you've worked on shooters, things like that. It's not simpler, but it's kind of a known quantity of how to balance damage and traversal. Now, balancing a puzzle difficulty, how do you know if it makes sense to you? It may be completely illogical to someone else. How'd you go about that with the team?
Yeah, I think part of our answer to that was playtesting. Once we did have a version of an area that was far enough along that we could put it in front of somebody within Double Fine, or even like an external tester, we sat them down and watched them play through and just see what problems they ran into. And we didn't say anything, so it's difficult but very edifying in a way as a designer to watch the stuff that you're working on being played like that. And we would just see where did people get stuck, and we would encourage them to talk aloud, what are they thinking about, what are they trying to do, whatever. And that was tremendously helpful because we would come out of that and we would see where the knowledge, where the information we were trying to get across to them was failing. Oh, they're not getting this, so that means that we need to add this or change this so that maybe they can get it. Because adventure game puzzle design, part of it is just putting the right information in front of people. If you put too much information in front of people, then you don't have a puzzle, and it's just they'll figure it out right away. But if you don't put enough or the right kind of information, then they'll get stuck, and then they're banging their heads against it. And but that's what's interesting and difficult about it, is that there's a certain kind of being stuck that's really good, because it means that the wheels are turning and they're not frustrated, they're just figuring it out and trying things out and experimenting and all that. But there's a very fine line, and it varies for different people. Yeah, and you don't have clear metrics like you do with a game that's based around combat, where you can say okay, they died this many times and they took this much damage, and we'd rather it be this way, so let's put more health packs or whatever in the level. With this, it was more just well, they were stuck in this area for a long time. A, are we okay with that? B, what do we want to do about it? Do we want to give them a hint in this direction? No, that's too much of a gimme. Let's figure out something else. or let's just leave it because it's actually good that, you know, this is late in the game, or it's the right kind of difficult puzzle for this kind of situation. So
on the same kind of topic, you say a lot of your kind of inspiration came from those old style adventure games, and Ron has spoken a lot about how important it was to trim down that inventory to a manageable level.
Yeah.
Was that almost a kind of a double take moment, getting up and be like, but it's an adventure game.
Yeah.
You know, don't we design puzzles around taking pieces from here to there? Was that a challenge, or was that more welcome that, oh good, you know, all the pieces needed to solve the puzzle are going to be in kind of a manageable area, and did that simplify it, or did that actually complicate it?
I think it was a very useful constraint. I mean, sometimes you'll have a constraint that does make certain things more complicated, but for the most part, it was really nice to be able to say, we don't have an inventory, each player can only carry 3 items. It simplified stuff, and it kept everything nice and like visual and visible, you know, so that it's like, okay, well, I got to carry this thing over to here and set it down. So yeah, I think it was a really sound simplification, you know, for the kind of game that we had. Yeah.
That's a little thing, going back to some of the puzzle design. Was that in your mind all along, that you would have multiple people moving around in the world solving together, or was it you, since the characters, regardless of how many people are playing with you, you know, you're always moving the characters independently, sometimes you need them all over the map. So did it change anything, knowing there'd be multiple kind of minds on it, or?
The multiple, like knowing just that there would be another human player, I think we were able to just kind of take that as like a side benefit of it. I think the ability, the fact that when you're playing it as a single player, you're still controlling all 3 characters and switching between them, that made it a lot easier to assume, you know, we were able to assume in most cases that 2 or 3 co-op players would be able to do the same kind of stuff. So that was a useful, you know, convergence of different things, so that we didn't have to like completely redesign areas or just rethink puzzles in a dramatic way for 2 or 3 players. But I think there's still a pretty clear benefit that you get from playing it in co-op. So I think that worked out pretty well.
So probably the most important question, entire interview, it's on everyone's mind. If the cave were a sandwich, what kind of sandwich would it be?
That's a good one. If the cave were a sandwich, it'd probably be really tall and deep and have a whole bunch of different layers that are all really different. You know, you have like a lettuce layer and a salami layer and a mustard layer. Yeah, but you know, and so there's all these disparate flavors because we've got someone from the future in it and someone from medieval times and all these different things. And maybe they don't seem like they would fit together nicely, but they do actually, you know, when you start biting into the giant messy mass and chewing it up. So yeah, and it's, yeah, you know.
So a big piley stew on bread with cheese and lettuce and things.
Yeah, because I like the stew. Yeah, I like the stew analogy. You know, there's a whole bunch of different things, like, you know, in the slow cooker, and it's just the flavors are mingling together. So yeah, a big tall stew on bread, composite thing. You know, there's not even a name for it.
There is now.
It's just there. Yeah, right. Yeah.